That's a question I
So you
have.
take it away. You started out today.
All right.
All right.
Do I have to tell you to shut up?
Well, you just did, so go for it.
Why do you always got to start a conversation with "shut up"?
It just seems like the polite way to say hello.
Polite. All right. So here's a question. I want to get you talk about this a little bit. Figure it out. Christians always say, "Hate the sin, love the sinner." Sometimes I think that's a cop out, but I think there's a way to do that. What are your thoughts?
You were aiding in that one for a second.
Burn.
You didn't
Hate
feel it?
the sin, love the sinner. How to do that,
so
or what
what's
are
the
your
deal?
thoughts
Wait.
on that? Wait, what do you mean by that? So, like, the thoughts on it being like, do I agree with it?
Well, let's just start
or-
here. Do you have friends? Do you have people that you have, relationships with, friends and frenemies, that are different from you? You don't agree with their lifestyle. You don't agree with things they do, but again, you maintain a relationship with them. How do you balance all that? How do you just? Maybe it's even some place that you work, like something that you do for work that maybe doesn't line up with your beliefs. How do you justify doing that? Someone at work, you got to have a discussion or to go about doing things a certain way. And again, maybe it's a political belief, maybe it's a religious belief, maybe it's just something you don't agree with in general. How do you? Because that's all around you, right?
So I guess it kind of depends on the moment and who I'm with. More often than not, in a professional setting, I would more share something if the opportunity presented itself. Like, I'm not gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like, with my employer at work, unless someone's overtly making me uncomfortable or doing something that I'm like ridiculously like feel is out of bounds, I'm not gonna like shove it down somebody's throat. Just if it comes up in conversation, would I bring that up? You know what I'm saying?
That you have a difference of opinion, or
Yeah,
that's
that I may
a
not
faith
agree with what's
issue,
going
or-
on, you
yeah.
know? And that happens a lot. I mean, just being around people, certain things get said. It's not hard to just not like laugh at something when it's not very funny, especially with like the work I do, because I do a lot of physical labor, and guys that do physical labor jobs,
Like, so
their sense of
without
humor.
saying something graphic, can you give us a for instance, something that might come up?
So like for instance, like okay, so like I work with big groups of people, like customer service is kind of a part of it. So like a lot of the guys I work with almost exclusively guys. So when there's like a girl that comes around, you know how guys are, they just kind of start talking crap and mentioning something, or like let's say something when people walk by, or some of them are married but they don't like. They'll talk disrespectful about their wife or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so in those moments, I don't like really engage or laugh at the jokes because I don't find them very funny. And it's nothing like, I'm not trying to be confrontational with anybody. I just, it's just kind of more, it makes me more uncomfortable than I do find anything funny. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. Because I know exactly what
It's
he's
just like,
talking about.
ha, okay.
Yeah, I just stand there and go, is there anyone else I can talk to?
Yeah.
Because I feel like definitely with those types of conversations, and especially where we work, they go on for like 5-10 minutes. And it's just like constant like uncomfortability.
At what point would you be confrontational? And let's define confrontational. Would you just say, "Hey, not cool, man," or like, "You're an idiot"? You know what I mean? There's different levels of confrontation.
I think
as
so. There's
dealing with the
different
subject.
levels of dealing with it where you are too. So like if I'm at work, it's going to be a lot more because I'm not being paid for my opinions. You know what I'm saying? So the only time I would get uncomfortable is if it crossed a line with what my work would argue with, like their HR agreement or something like that.
So I'm not sure what that is. So I mean, I know what an HR agreement is, but what is it at work? And
Well, like if someone says something like, so sexual harassment is part of like the workplace, and if someone says something that's like in that like relation, you could make a claim against something like that. So if it went graphic enough, or like if someone was talking about some wild stuff like abuse or something like that. I guess it kind of depends on like the for instance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And so, does your work have the? You don't have to mention the where you work. That's not what I'm asking for, and I think we should probably leave that out of it. But do they also have guidelines for just personal behavior or conversations that are appropriate or inappropriate that may not have anything to do with sexuality?
That's what I'm saying. So like a lot of those conversations, there already are lines there. So I only if it's crossing something like the line like where my work would have, and if I'm in agreement with it, would I, then maybe be a little bit more confrontational about something. But you still have to like handle that more appropriately. Outside of work, I think you kind of have like a different set of rules. You can kind of argue with someone a little bit more back and forth because it's not like I'm getting paid to be doing something else. You know what I'm saying? Like when I'm at work, I'm getting paid to do something else, so my opinion doesn't matter.
I know last year, 2020, in February, Aiden and I did audio at an event. That was something that, again, wonderful people, but had some people there, political figures. One of them who's pretty high on the chain these days, that said a lot of things and made a lot of statements and whatnot that were just honestly patently untrue, let alone things that I didn't agree with politically. But it's interesting to sit there as they're really talking bad about white people, is what it was, and you're the one serving them and helping them, get their message across. And it was, kind of a very uncomfortable moment because everybody on the crew was, mostly white or Hispanic people, and they weren't too happy with either one of them. Yeah. And professional people that just had to stand there and do their job while we basically got, are called names by the person we're helping, just to get the hoops and the hollers out of the crowd.
Yeah.
And, it was, professional situation. Like, well, this is my job
so in
today.
a moment like that, like, there's no arguing. There's no, like, you're not going to jump up and yell at that person or say something to them or, like, even try to combat it in a polite conversation would be inappropriate.
Yeah, you won't work. You won't work again.
And so, like, something like that where you just kind of, you back off that, I don't think if it threatens, I think like a good line for that for me is like if it threatens like my family or, like my livelihood, I don't know that I have to press that so much. Unless it's like really dire situation. Like there's always that like for instance, but like that's, I don't know what that would be. It's kind of in the moment. But I think we all know what that would be in the moment.
Let's ask Austin. Austin works in the same field we do sometimes too, and again, audio and show business and things like that. So obviously, we want to keep working, so we don't just say everything we think all the time, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, but there is a line somewhere. So where is the line? Where's the line where you just go, nah, I ain't working here. I'm not working with these people. I'm done. Is there one?
I mean, I think there is one. The problem
I hope there is, because there's adult entertainment out there. We don't do that, right?
I've never said yes to those gigs. So
right? There's one line. There's one line. We're pretty sure we're not participating with that group. I don't care what they do. But so you know what I mean. So now walk it back from there. Like, okay, that's a definite no.
Well, this is what's interesting, right? So I'm forgetting. I think it's Justice Scalia had a famous quote, and it was actually it was regarding pornography. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that he says is, I'm not sure how to define it, but I know it when I see it. And I think that's kind of how I approach even that line in business and in that relationship. I've never sat down and had that thought process of if they get to this point, it's done. But I definitely feel that if I was in that moment, I would be like, hey, I know exactly what this is, and I'm out. I'm done. I do know there have been times where I've been very uncomfortable with how we've approached things, and I will be verbal. Say I'm on again, we work in the industry, we do some entertainment stuff. If I'm working as a part of a crew, especially if I'm not in charge of the crew, if I'm in the crew, I will go to my crew lead and I will just be very explicit. Hey, I'm really uncomfortable with what's happening over here, whether it's a safety thing or it's an ideological problem where they're pushing an ideology that I think is actually dangerous. That's probably where I would ask. I would go though. If it's dangerous, if I believe that the natural logical path that we are on is these people are not just evil, but they need to be now confronted for their evilness. That's where I probably start drawing that line. Is if it's actionable and it can become dangerous towards a group of people, whether it's a racial group or an ideological group or whatever it is. I think
And you're
that's
talking about people you're working with, not people you're working for. Or is that both?
I'm talking about people that I'm working for. If so again, you're a part of a crew, right? So I'm normally, the way it works is I'm hired by someone, and I'm not hired directly by whoever's in charge of what we're doing. And I'm down the totem pole enough that they didn't ask me for me by name.
Yeah.
That's not true for Ron. Ron, you do get asked for by name, I know. Sometimes it's like that one guy. He said yes to everything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, even people that I'm technically working for, if they draw, or if they're expressing views that I think now can become actionably dangerous, that's probably where I would have to say, hey guys, it's been great working for you, but you're gonna have to call someone else.
Because some of the people we work for, in my opinion, are taking advantage of people. Meaning they're running some kind of self-help group.
Yeah.
They're running some kind of promotional thing. They want to help these people, go to a higher level of something. And so they're paying thousands of dollars to come to this event. And here we are running audio or doing lighting and staging and whatnot for these events. We're getting paid to put on a professional event with these people. But it is interesting sometimes when you know the backstory. And you just want to look at some of these people and go, you realize this whole thing's a scam?
Well, and technically, now this is another part of this, right? What we do is we make people look awesome. Like we actually are providing people credibility because the technical is done at an extremely high professional clip.
Especially when I'm asked for.
Especially when Ron is asked for, especially that. But we are lending them legitimacy through
professionalism. Yeah.
So
which is sad because at the same event, when we get audio tracks, sometimes they are recorded from an iPhone sitting next to a computer playing a YouTube clip.
It's not that they are that legitimate, that we just make them legitimate.
It's just sad sometimes.
But yeah, no. I would agree with Austin that it's either if they're causing harm, going to cause harm, or it seems abusive. You don't know that line until you see it, I think, but you all know what it is when you see it. It's kind of hard to walk through that, I guess, but...
Well, and it's really difficult it's hard to be able to say to someone, hey, I know you're paying me. I understand that our relationship is based on the idea that at the end of today, you're handing me a fat check.
Yeah.
But we still have to have that moment of being able to say, hey, I know that fat check was supposed to come. I'm here for half the day today, and it's because I can't be here. I can't be here for this.
Yeah.
I was at a show down in Anaheim one time, hired by one group that had mostly, related to the Jewish faith, or a version of the Jewish faith. And there was a man hired for security that kept basically saying they were radical Muslims out loud, and telling everybody on the crew that, hey, something's going to go down because these guys are really, they're terrorists. Because again, they're very these folks. A lot of them are from Israel, and they have that kind of Middle Eastern in their fervor, right, in the way that they express themselves. And he probably said it 4 or 5 times in 10 minutes. And next thing you know, they had like real armed security that took the guy aside and said, "Yeah, you need to go home for the day." And he was a professional security guard, but he just kind of espoused his belief, and it sounded pretty contradictory and pretty derogatory towards these folks. They were, again, completely harmless. in the physical sense. They weren't doing anybody any harm. They certainly just had some beliefs in the way they were doing it. But he didn't like their intensity level. He didn't like their exuberance, and for him, it kind of signaled that we might be dealing with some extremists. And boy, he was telling everybody, and it was like, man, you and again, I'm on the same show as a Christian, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't what I believe in, but I also don't believe these people are terrorists, and that's not fair. And so it was an interesting day for me to be like, yeah, I don't agree with this either, but it's not that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, slow your roll, Chief. You shouldn't be mouthing off about things like that's not fair.
Yeah, I think it becomes really it's very easy to try and start to paint with that really fat paintbrush. Anyone who's not painted before, I recognize it's a small segment of people. Okay, I know everyone's
Today
painted.
we use rollers a lot.
Well, I was going to say, so you can grab that roller, right? And
You can also have a weenie roller. There's different size rollers.
Thank you.
Okay, so
You just like popped his balloon so hard, bro. He's just like completely deflated, just down to the ground. Just looked at you like,
what's
this guy?
what's hard is so he didn't just pop. He's like, there's weenie rollers, and he's like, and weenies come in different sizes.
I didn't say weenies. I said rollers.
Oh, sorry,
It's just
rollers.
what Austin heard. That's
Yeah.
just what
That's
he heard.
exactly what
Yeah.
I heard.
It's all he's thinking about now.
By the way, I just lost my camera, probably for battery, so it'll just be audio for me on
No,
this
your
one.
camera's still on.
Well, then it fell out. I'll get it.
Click at a button.
Click it.
All right, so beyond that, we can go back and talk about maybe another work situation if that's come up. But then you said there's different environments, arenas, or contexts where that's going to be handled differently. So what about it? What about you and the guys are hanging out, friends of yours from high
personally,
school, and all of
yeah.
a sudden something is said, or we go down a road and you go, wait a minute.
Again, yeah. So I think it's like whatever is said. If it is something that I would say crosses the line, like are you asking how do you handle that, or how have I handled that?
Have you ever had to walk out of a party because things just got weird?
I haven't gone to many parties in my life, and most of them have been with family or, so I've never had that moment. But I mean, I've heard thousands of stories about people that do that, hanging out with your friends, and I don't know, like they're all married guys, and then a bunch of them want to go to like a strip club or something, and it's like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go home,
We were. I'll tell you, Sonny.
I know
this
it's an
is
extreme example,
True
but-
story. True story. We are at a bachelor party for somebody in our church, Christian guy, supposedly all Christian people, and so it was. We're expecting, hey, we're gonna have a barbecue. We're gonna play some music. We're gonna do something fun like that, and not thinking anything really other than that. And then as we're sitting around, and again, I got kids from the youth group there and the whole deal, all of a sudden a car pulls up, and what is very obvious strippers and hookers start getting out. And I was like, whoa, hold on. And one of the people running the party is like, no, this is the plan. I wasn't running the party. So I quickly gathered up every young person, everybody who, wasn't aware of what was about to happen and wasn't agreeing with it, again, from church, and went, all right, let's go. We're getting out of here. And we start walking out. And we get out to the driveway in the front yard. And at that point, other people pulled up and the party got broke up. But it was an interesting situation to be like, we had like 10, 12 people from church gathered outside because we're getting ready to like, well, and again, some of them, I didn't drive them there. I don't have a car to get everybody home.
Yeah.
But it's just, I can't have them in this house with all this, crap going on. That's not cool. And I don't want to be there, and it was disgusting.
Yeah.
And but people are like, oh man, what's wrong? Don't you like women? You're like, what is wrong with you? That has nothing to do with it. This is not. this isn't proper at all. And again, it's not even proper male behavior.
Yeah.
And it's just perversion and gross.
Yeah.
And so anyway, but that was one time in particular, but many of those same people that were in there and decided to stay in there, I have had conversations with. This was many years ago. I've had conversations with and some of those guys today are saved and they're different.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's really interesting to just go, okay, so again, I love you, but I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean-
have no. Oh, go ahead.
I mean, when Riley was getting married, I was planning his bachelor party, and we went out to the desert and shot stuff and blew up fireworks and almost got blown up by a firework. But
America.
yeah, a real bachelor party, not stupid bar hopping. No, we blew stuff up with explosives and bullets.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, Riley was like, I don't know why he explained it to me later, but he adamantly told me, like, no strippers. And at first I was like, really? First of all, I'm like 17. Second of all, really? You're nasty. He's like, I'm not talking about you. He had a particular friend that was also going to be at the bachelor party, and he was pretty much saying, make sure he doesn't order anything. And so, I mean, I don't know.
Sometimes it's just those people in your life. You gotta put the
I
extra
know.
layer of protection around.
So I don't know if you talked to him or I talked to him. Maybe we both did. He didn't even end up coming because he was doing something. I don't know. But I remember having to have that conversation. Like, yeah, no, you're like, you don't get to plan anything. You don't have to call nobody. You don't get to spend no money. Like, no, you can
Yeah.
drive out to the desert.
Yeah.
That's it. So, but I remember having that conversation. So that was,
Yeah.
I don't know why that's like, the
I've never
for
had
both.
an experience like that, like sexually, like where you're in a situation where it gets awkward and you have to get out of there. like,
Perversion?
uncomfortable. Yeah, because I just never experienced like either being around people in that moment or anything like that. Every like situation where I've been around people are doing dumb stuff, like it more has to do it did with like drugs and like you know getting drunk and stuff like that. And honestly, when I was younger, my like get out meter was kind of broken. Well, I'm
Is
being
that
honest.
another
I mean-
podcast episode?
Yeah. Well, you like 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, and like I didn't have like family or anything, so like it's kind of when I was younger, I didn't feel like I had like things that I was responsible for. You know what I mean? And to where you were talking about it earlier, where you pulled those people out of that situation where there was like hookers showing up and stuff. And it's because you felt responsible for those people. So even in those other, like those situations or those parties I was at when I was younger, I didn't feel responsible for anybody outside of there or like inside of there really.
Mm-hmm.
So I was willing to be like there a lot more. I didn't do a lot of that stuff. Like I didn't get like crazy. Like I never, there was a lot of stuff I saw that was just like, at least in my own head, it's just crazy that people do that on a regular basis. But I was willing to at least be there. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. That's when I was younger, though. Nowadays, I just take the approach of avoid.
Avoid?
Which I know may not be the best option also, because we're supposed to be there and we're supposed to, reach those people and talk to those people. And I do have those friends that are
Well-
now very difficult to talk to, but
I think you have to have the maturity. I've heard people say, this is a stupid discussion that's had. I've heard it many times over my years, and it's just dumb. Would you go into a bar if you knew you could save somebody? First of all, it's not wrong to go into a bar, so I think that's a dumb discussion.
Yeah.
But then they move to, okay, would you go into a strip club or whatever if you knew you were going to save somebody? And here's the deal.
if that was
First of
the
all,
intention of going into the strip club.
yeah, it's like, really, you're going to go in there and do missionary work, dude? Is that really
like,
why you're going in there?
If that's what you were purposely going in there
Yeah.
for, we might be able
And
to talk
the
about
thing
that.
is usually when you're having that discussion, that already signals you don't have the maturity to do it anyway.
Yeah.
So
You're already
so
trying to
you're-
tempt the line.
Yeah,
and
you're
see,
already
like,
you're already a
so
loser.
would
So stop it,
you
Yeah.
right?
poke a
Um,
bear with a stick If I gave you
Yeah,
$25 million,
it's an immature question to begin with, but it is a real scenario in this. Are you in situations that you're uncomfortable with? Are you able to be there, and are you intentional about being there missionally? Because if you look at Scripture, the Apostle Paul, Peter, we see them in situations where they are outside of their, not only their comfort level, they're outside of their cultural frame, and even in a dangerous area at times, areas that do not agree with them politically, do not agree with them spiritually, and sometimes are even actively working against them. And they go into those areas on purpose, with a purpose, and empowered, and actually are effective. You know what I mean? So the question is does God have you in relationships? Can you see Him having you in relationships for missional reasons? And are you approaching it with that mindset? Are you being purposeful? Are you being intentional? Are you making sure that you, again, are strong spiritually? Are you making sure that you have all your tools with you spiritually, weapons? Again, Scripture talks about, and so that you can be effective. Because you're not. Here's the thing: you're not in your social circles. You're not in your work circles. You're not in all these places by accident.
Yeah.
I don't see that at all. If the only thing that the Lord intended for you was for you to cleanly and safely make it to the day you die, so that you can go to heaven, he could just kill you the day you get saved.
Yeah, how boring.
He could kill you the day you pop out.
Well,
Or
again,
on
if
the
it's to
other
get
hand-
to heaven,
on the
the
other
point would
hand-
be to get to heaven. And so if it's all about just getting to heaven, then you get saved and then go to heaven. But He's left you here, obviously, to do something.
Yeah.
What is it? And
that doesn't mean bask in the blessings and go play with new toys every weekend either.
Yeah.
no.
You know, I mean, not that it's a bad thing all the time. Or sometimes. All the
Yeah.
time it is, yes.
Yes. Well, when you do it consistently all the time, it is a bad thing.
Said that backwards.
Sometimes you're ridiculous, Riley.
Sometimes it's really dangerous to
Okay,
have him
so
talk.
we talked about kind of being non-confrontational about it. So, just evade and avoid those
Yeah.
moments. What about when you actually have to confront? Where's the line where you actually go, hold on, you're not doing that, I'm not doing that?
I think what Austin said earlier about being dangerous, and I think for each person, it's a personal call as to where dangerous is.
And the relationship you have with the person you're talking to.
Well, hang on, let him finish this thought first, because
But so is it dangerous to myself to be in this position? Is it dangerous to my family for me to be here right now? And is it dangerous for me to be in this position and avoid it and just walk away? Or is it going to come back and hurt me? Is it going to possibly mess this person's life up? Like, and as Riley just said, the relationship. Do I care enough for this person's well-being and that I'm willing to pretty much either emotionally or physically punch them in the face and get hit back and sit there and fight them on something? And so, I mean, I know we're supposed to care for everybody, but there's not always that relationship there, and you're not, if you confront someone, they're not going to confront you back. They're just going to tell you to F off and walk away, So I think you have to make that call as to, is it dangerous enough to be lastingly hurtful? And will the person actually respond to you being aggressive in a at least Newtonian way?
Well,
I'm not familiar
Get
with this
lost with these
term,
words.
Newtonian.
Oh, I don't know. I couldn't think of the word, so I just went weirdly, stupidly geeky. Every reaction has an equal opposite reaction. So if I push back at them, they're gonna push back at me equally as hard, and then we can actually argue about it.
Okay, I get what you said. And what about sometimes when something just needs to get said?
I think in those moments, you just have to say it.
Again, but how do you decide? Give me some scenarios. How do you decide? Can't just come up with, oh, that's a good idea.
This is what was interesting
Is Austin's camera back on yet?
yes, it is.
Nice.
Yeah, I got it.
I told you. I fixed
No, he fixed it immediately. He
Yeah.
told me, he's like, just press that little button right there, bud. And I was like, okay. And I pressed it and it was back. It was great.
He imitates you, and he sounds like you're like a character from The Simpsons.
I
Have you
sounded
noticed that?
like what's
Kermit
that
the
one?
Frog?
Yeah, the frog.
What's that one? The frog?
Kermit the Frog here. No, so it is an interesting moment because I in my head I was asking these questions as this part of the conversation is going on, and the first question I'm asking is, okay, what's the context? Next question I was asking is, what's my role in that context? And I'm like, if I'm not the leader, is it my? And then literally in my head, I'm like, okay, at what point does the Bible say that you're now exempt from leadership just because you're not the leader in that moment? And so that's literally in my head. I'm having this, like, I'm debating in my head, like, okay, where should I be landing? And I'm like, oh crap, I am called to be a leader, not just in the context at church where I'm preaching a Sunday, but in the context of my family, in the context of my job, because God has not called us to be weak and
Called you to be
weak-minded.
salt and light.
He's called us to be salt and light. And I love making things taste good. It's like, let's go. So I that was the conversation I'm having in my head the whole time. I'm like, oh crap, I'm supposed to be leading the whole time, even if it's in the back and pushing. Like, I'm supposed to be leading. Dang it.
I feel like you could push a big crowd. Like you're strong. Like you could push a
I
big
was like,
crowd.
okay, is that like a fat joke? Like, where are we going with here? Like,
Why do you always think I'm making
I-
fat jokes?
but mostly because I just think
'Cause
it's
you're
funny to accuse you.
insensitive.
I just like to accuse you of things because, yeah.
You're just a little insensitive. That's all.
Yeah. You just have a tone in your voice sometimes that says I'm a jerk.
Yeah.
And so
Wait, no.
jerk.
That's your brother. Sorry.
I'm a jerk.
I would argue that Austin has that same tone.
What?
all right. So I mentioned this in the sermon on Sunday that we see Jesus be very confrontational and in fact use some creative language when he talks to people. And again, I can enjoy it. I do enjoy it when Jesus says things. It's like, oh man, he got him on that one. But to think about it this way, that Jesus doesn't have an inferiority complex. Jesus doesn't have anything to prove. He isn't afraid that somebody's better than him. There's no ulterior motive other than he's good and he's sinless and God. And yet he throws some things out every once in a while that are very controversial, very, they don't really add to the warm feelings in the room. They're very abrasive. He calls the Pharisees a brood of vipers at one point. He says that, basically your mom had sex with the devil and that's how you got here. There's things like that he says, and you're just like, oh wow. But he's saying that he's not in their eyes. He's not the authority in the room. He's not the authority in the context. These are the guys from the community, and he's just some pauper from Nazareth, from Galilee, in their eyes. And so, but yet he's willing to say something like that. Pauper. And so,
Popper.
how do you? I know you can, but how do you get to that point where you can say something? And here's the amazing thing: when Jesus says something confrontational, he has a big old argument. Have you ever had that like big heated moment with somebody, and then when it's over, you kind of just extract yourself from the situation, or we've got to separate so we can cool down. Let's just take some time. Jesus will have a big confrontational moment, and then he just kind of sits down in the middle of it and goes, all right, I'm going to start teaching now.
It's like my favorite thing to do.
And just sits like right in the middle of the big mess and is just going to be Jesus,
As an older brother, I mean, I kind of do that to Aiden sometimes, like I'll just push all the buttons and push him and push him and push him until he pops. And then as he pops, and I just like sit there and watch what I did.
I don't think that's even close to the same thing.
That's not the right motivation, by the way. That is not what you need to be doing.
Well,
Okay, but if you did that with people that we're being pharisaical or having issues like that, and then like you pushing them and pushing them and pushing them until they have a reaction. I mean, maybe that's what we are.
The goal's
Kinda
not the
going for it, right?
reaction.
But the
Yeah.
goal's
No,
not
not
the
the reaction, but the reaction is a result
But
of.
All right, let's hear what Austin has to say.
Okay,
All right.
I would just say, Riley, you're relishing in the reaction rather than relishing in the
Yeah,
teaching.
like I said, your motivations are all messed up.
Yeah, the relishing's not in that; it's the teaching that he relished. It was the expansion
You
of
can relish in
he's
both. I'm
forgetting-
just saying, enjoy the little
no,
things.
no, no. He's forgetting
okay?
that most of the time when he would do that and I would blow up, he was right there, and then he would tell us both to knock it off, and then he would be the teacher for a second. So he is missing the teacher element. He's just the button pusher.
I was just.
He's
I was
halfway
giving
there.
an example. I
He's halfway there.
apologize.
Well, so personally, I think we've made it clear that I don't have a problem being abrasive, but I think what I need to do is learn how to do it wisely.
Why'd you look at me when you said wisely?
I don't know.
What was that?
I like looking at you, Austin. It makes you feel like you're part of the
He's
conversation.
hoping for some affirmation.
So, I mean, growing up, he makes fun of me for it all the time. I would say stuff that was just no filter, rude, just so biting. And it was to like complete strangers half the time. And so, I don't know. I think I just need to learn how to do that with wisdom. And then also, in the wisdom, also do it in a almost loving way where,
Almost.
well, it's hard. It's hard to be abrasive and loving at the same time. So that's what I mean. But
I don't know that's true.
okay. Well, then in a loving way. There you go.
I guess it may be hard, but it's something
I
that
guess
is-
it's hard to master.
It's something that you can absolutely do. Love somebody and let them know that they are not
But
where they need to be. And
I think in to correct people, I think I need a little bit, at least personally, I think I need more knowledge of how things function and how things should function.
well, here's what you all said a minute ago: is that you'll know it when you see it.
Yeah.
Well,
now we just changed. Now we need
no.
knowledge.
No,
No.
he's saying to combat it, he needs.
because I
to
can
have
call someone
more-
out, but if they come at me and they start asking me questions,
Okay, so I'm not going to use the word, as we might have kids listening or something. I'm not going to use the word, but you got a friend, you got somebody in your car, you're going somewhere, you're working with somebody, and somebody says, can you believe that your boss is a female? Can you believe that? And they use the B word. Can you believe that? B? Now what do you do? Now, I mean, from then on, whatever else they say, we've already crossed the line, in my opinion. Right? We've already crossed the line.
And to not acknowledge the fact that that line just got crossed, in essence, whether you mean
be
it to be
agreeing
this,
with
you,
it, yeah.
you are now at least you are participating in that word being used, even if you didn't verbally say, "Hey, I totally agree and affirm what you just said that person to
Yeah.
be."
Yeah, and it happens all the time. A conversation will get repeated and say, "Man, I was talking to Riley. We were talking about how she was,"
yeah,
and you're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! I was just there. I didn't say that."
Yeah.
And I think again, you have a responsibility, even to yourself, let alone the person that's being spoke about. I think you have a responsibility to the person who said it to
Yeah.
deal with the subject.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think you could do it though without being mean. You
Oh,
can,
of course, yeah.
There's very subtle ways
What's
to combat
mean?
something like that.
What's mean? I told somebody to get out of my truck one time.
Well, I mean,
They
that's
thought I was kidding at first. I said, "No, I'm not kidding. Get out of my truck."
I kicked him out of your truck.
for what?
Okay, let's not go down a rabbit trail.
What was the person?
Because
doing?
they called a female that they were going to get married to, they were engaged to. As they got off the phone, they slammed the phone down and said, "That B." And I said, I just looked over and I
yeah.
said, "Hey, can you get out of my truck?" And they're
Well-
like, "Why?" And I said,
So that's what I'm saying though. It's like in that I wouldn't even say that's mean though. It's your approach isn't aggressive or like demeaning or anything. You can just simply be like, "Hey man, can we not do that?" Like,
but I think
No,
if
I
we
didn't.
go,
I didn't do that at all. If you listen to the story, that's not what I did.
all right,
Okay, and I'm not saying I'm perfect or right. I'm just saying that I said, don't ever use that word about a female around me. Period. Then he said, "You're saying you've never said it about your wife?" And I said, "Not once. I've never even thought it. I have never done it. I won't do it." And I said, "And either get out of my truck, or I will have you removed." And I said, "You either call her back and apologize. It's the only way you're getting a ride home. We were leaving work." And I said, you gotta fix this now. Don't ever do that around me again." And he really did think I was kidding at first. And I did. I unlocked the door, reached over and opened the door. I'm like, "Get out." I wasn't, "Hey man, I really would like you to not use." No, I wasn't. I was aggressive. I was done. He just crossed that line. It was like, dude, that word went way too far.
yeah,
And this gal that he was getting ready to marry, again, she's a great gal, but that's beyond the point. You're not gonna, I'm gonna love, cherish, and honor this woman, and oh by the way, call her that.
yeah,
It's not how this works. And again, I don't think you should treat anybody that way, but especially you getting married to this gal. That's how you're gonna start. This guy didn't take my advice. He got married, ended up being married for a couple of years, had an affair on her, and they ended up getting divorced.
yeah.
She asked for my advice. I mean, you're talking about whether I was mean or patient or anything. She asked for my advice as to whether she should marry him. She was a gal that had grown up in my church. And I said, "No, absolutely not." I said, I think you'd be making a big mistake if you marry him. I think he's immature, and I don't think he respects you. She married him anyway.
yeah,
And so, I was just being brutally just honest.
Yeah, I mean, also, if you take it back to Jesus calling the Pharisees like a brood of vipers and the whole "your mother slept with the devil" thing, that's not very nice.
yeah.
And I bet in context, it was really harsh and rude and abrupt. So I don't think you need to be,
It was taken as rude.
well, that's what I mean.
I know. I'm
So-
just,
But I get what you're saying though, because it is hard, and then anymore too. Just in today, if you're mean in any sort of way, you're a bigot or
Yeah,
a
I
hater
think that's a hard ask,
or-
because it's like now, like, if I did that with someone at my work, like, we're just not going to talk anymore after that, which was just cool. Like, I don't know the relationship you had with this person. You know what I'm saying? Because would you have been that abrasive with someone that, like, you talk to a few times a week? If so, I mean, okay, but
yeah. If and here's the situation. For one, I was employing the person at the time.
yeah.
But none of my friends are allowed to talk like that either. You
Yeah.
ain't gonna. I've had friends before that I had from high school, right? I've different people I've known, and asked them to change their behavior. And for one, I know that my wife can handle a certain level of behavior. She's an adult. She can decide what she can tolerate and can't. And again, be in a relationship missionally. Well, then when Riley was born, Riley was little, and some of these same people that had been around me, I was like, dude, I can't have you talking like that. I can't have you acting like that because my son's young enough to where he's going to pick up on that, think that's normal behavior. I'm going to have way too many conversations. And I had a lot with you guys growing up about, hey, what that person did, we love them, but that's not right.
yeah,
Right? What that person said, we love them, but that's not right. And we don't condone that. We don't go for that. And but there were some people that just didn't respect that line at all. They didn't care that I had a certain way that we were raising you and hopes and way we were guiding you. They didn't care. And so guess what?
you just stop hanging out with them, and that's
They-
where I
they
was
were-
talking
they were
about
gone,
where
yeah.
there's people from my life that I've hung out with, but it's like nothing ever seems to change, and you bring them
Yeah.
around and you try to help them out, and there have been times where I have gotten straight up mad and yelled at some of my friends. I remember one day Aiden was home, and one of my buddies was over, and I was literally like screaming at him because he said something that was so
Just
like in my
ignorant.
mind ignorant, and he didn't even really agree with it. He just said it because he thought that's like something he should say. And like the fact that he just wasn't picking it up, I've yelled so I was yelling at him, but like now it's just like I just can't have him around that much because it's like nothing ever changes, and that's dangerous to me because just being around people, the influences you have in your life, that's dangerous to my wife because she has to deal with that and she just doesn't want to deal with that, and I have a baby on the way now. It's dangerous to them.
And exactly what kind of you referred to a minute ago is people will think that you're unloving or that you hate someone. Well, here's the deal, is that I'm not unloving because I tell one person they cannot come into my house, because I'm loving and protecting the people in my house.
Yeah.
Meaning, so someone could come into my house and potentially do everyone harm. Out of love for the people in my home, they're not allowed to come in.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm very
you
blunt
exclude
about
them. And
that.
that's
Like,
not
this is not a
being
place for you.
aggressive to somebody. And it's not that door would always be closed. Like if you changed and you weren't this person and you had God really touch your life and something was noticeably different, it's a different story. Maybe you could come inside. But as of right now, we're not going to hang out. And I think you got to know that with people, and you have to at least have that backbone to be like, all right, moving on. And then, like you said, when instances come around, like what happened with your friend, have the backbone to just say something. So I think a lot of people nowadays aren't going to say anything. They're just going to feel really awkward. And
Well, no one wants to become the bad guy. No one wants to be the person who actually calls other people out. No one wants to be that person that is pushing the limitations.
But
Because-
isn't that a broken view of the person that's afraid to be the bad guy? Meaning they're defining the bad guy as someone who's going to correct or bring truth.
Which
know what
I
I
think
mean?
is a cultural problem,
That's-
because anyone who you bring the truth and you're the bad guy, that's an issue there for sure. How do we fix that? I don't know, other than just start doing it and being savages. But
So
I think you also have to be polite. I think our politeness gets in the way a lot. That's part of the problem.
Yeah, I think it's a problem with our context. I really do. It's a societal issue that we're brushing up against because, to be very frank, this is a part of the danger that we are in with some of the cultural combatants that we're up against. The people that are pushing ideas of critical theory, those individuals are actively trying to change the language so that they force us to not step into certain traps that they've laid because they've changed the language enough that those are now traps. So they're now trying to box us in on what actions we can take. And when we take actions they don't like, but they haven't changed the language yet, then they use language they've already changed to paint us with a brush that will now negate any of the things that we're doing that would be positive and affirming or changing. But I agree with you. I think it is an act of love to be willing to be the blunt person, to step into that moment and to say, even though I love you, actually because I love you this much, I'm not willing to stand here and participate with the way that you just treated your future wife or whatever that context is. That is actually the act of love. And yet in our cultural context, we want to demonize that action in and of itself because that action brings change.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want people to change. We want people to sit in their filth, to sit in their waste, and we want to pay them to do it. And we want to say, not only is this good, this should be idealized. You should never achieve anything again because the only people who achieve are the people with power, and we should continue giving power to those people only. That's the cultural context that we live in. I know I went on a diatribe, but
No,
and
and that's where like that question comes up. So how do you stop that? How do you change that? How do you not be that? How do you be that different person?
I think you just have to refuse.
And
to
exactly,
participate
that's
that way.
what it is,
Yeah.
right? You plain and simple have to have a backbone.
Yeah.
You have to decide
My grandfather.
what your too far is and stop and throw someone out of your car if need be.
My grandfather said years ago. He said you'll answer for everything you say and everything you do. And so if you're going to take a stand, you really do have to think about it and go, okay, is it worth what the price I'm going to pay?
I think you can also answer for everything you didn't say and didn't do.
Yeah.
that's what I was going to
but
say too.
he was talking socially too,
Yeah.
and so that's what he was talking about. It's like, there's times in a sermon where again I'll use humor or I'll say something, and there is a price to pay for saying something. There's a price to pay for not saying it. A while back in a sermon, I actually said the words. We talked about abortion for a few minutes, and I said the words "abortion is murder." I had several people leave the church over that.
Yeah.
Just that statement, and I knew it. I knew it when I said it. That I did it. I was planning on saying it, and sooner or later you have to be confronted with the truth. I wasn't doing it meanly. I wasn't trying to hurt anybody. I do want people just to have their eyes open and hear the truth of God's word. And it's crazy to me. It's a wild idea that you could come to church and say you're a Christian, and yet that statement, abortion is murder, would be so controversial that you would think I'm a hateful human being for using it. And you know what? I won't even say again. And there's times that yes, I love you enough to tell you the truth. Here's the other thing. I love those unborn babies enough to say abortion is murder.
Yeah, and there's a lot more unborn babies than there are of you personally.
Well, yeah, but that's again, and over the period of a few weeks, just in a couple sermons talking about some different social ills like that Christians have, by and large, been silent on.
Yeah. It was like multiple families.
We
just
had
disappeared.
multiple families leave the church because, again, here we live in Southern California, and everybody's into alternative lifestyles, and everything is based. It's all subjective. But this is how I feel. This is what I want. This is what I want for my kids. What if my child is, one of them was, if my daughter was ever raped by her uncle, I would want her to be able to get an abortion. They come up with this hypothetical crazy situation, and yes, I'm sure it has happened.
Yeah, but is it going to happen? Are
there's
we really
the
wishing
moral
that, or
issue
thinking that's gonna
that
happen?
murder doesn't make that better.
Oh yeah.
And so again, you take that stand with the Word of God being true, and you speak it, and next thing you know, I'm being painted as hateful when in fact what I've said is very loving.
Yeah. Because, in that situation, a horrible sin has been committed. So you're going to commit another one to fix it?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And the person then that, and this is absolutely true. Nobody, we don't talk about this, but this is absolutely true that by and large, the majority of gals that end up getting abortion have really difficult times emotionally after that for years.
Yeah.
It's not a great easy solution. Again, if we're not even talking about scripture right now, it's not. And they, you have people, posting, they should be proud of it. It's like, no, you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
No, you shouldn't. And so again, just being able to confront, being able to speak truth. Are you going to take a hit for it? Yep.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is do it anyway. You have to do it anyway. And it is in love, but it's not always with the subject that you're speaking to, the person that you're speaking to. That isn't even always first priority when we're talking about love. It's that there may be other people involved that you're loving too, but the simple fact of the matter is, even beyond that, especially when we're talking about God's word is true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true every time. And so just speaking truth should be something that we love.
Yeah.
And just speaking rightly and speaking good things. Again, like I said about the person who got in my truck and making a phone call, said that word to this gal he was going to marry. That's not a good thing to say. That's not pure. You're not going to build a great relationship if that's your starting point. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And so, I'm calling, baloney on the whole thing right up front. And I'm challenging, when I'm talking to him, I'm challenging everything he thinks he gets to just say that stuff. And I'm like, absolutely not, dude. And I really look to my grandfathers, both of them, a lot for those kind of values. And they never spoke, they never spoke poorly about their wives. They never spoke poorly about a woman. They had that honoring thing, and it just made everything so wonderful and nice, and built that home. And again, God's word talks about being honorable and loving, And but again, we can't confuse being loving with not speaking truth. No, speaking truth is loving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
somebody's
people just need better role models too. That's part of the problem,
Well,
like you just said with
yeah.
your grandfather. People desperately need better role models because they,
Not Cardi B and
yeah,
Meghan Markle.
exactly. Yeah, they get these, these hints of what they think it is to be a great person or to accomplish something great.
Shots
And
fired.
and in reality, yeah, making a song about how wet a part of your body can be
Mhm.
is not as great as leading a legacy of people that are actively, trying
But
to,
that's
to
yeah,
do
and that
something.
is it's an immature understanding of what's important in life.
Yeah.
It's an immature understanding of what will matter to you in
And so you
the
have
last
to have
years and days of your life.
backbone.
Yeah.
Have a backbone.
Mm-hmm.
Change something. Be different. Because, man, it's gonna get really crappy really fast if no one starts being different.
Mm-hmm.
It's going down so quick.
Well, and again, so there's this quote that came out of, and I forget the pastor's name, but first they came for the Jews, and then and it's this painting of a picture of what happened in Nazi Germany, and an understanding of, hey, they came for these people and we didn't stand up for them. They came for this next group and we didn't stand up for them, and all of a sudden, they came for me and there was no one left to stand with me. And I think one of the issues that we're having in our culture right now is slowly we're looking at, again, the boundaries are being constricted, but they're being constricted at such a slow pace that we're seeing a couple people that end up outside the boundaries, and we're like, well, I didn't agree with everything that guy did anyway, so I'm okay with him. But we're not painting the picture of the greater boundary setting that is happening, where slowly it's just constricting like a noose around all of our necks.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it takes boldness.
Yeah.
It takes our willingness to stand up and say, no, this is true. And just because it is uncomfortable for you to hear this truth does not mean that I should have less ability or less responsibility to speak it in this moment,
Nor
Yeah.
does it make
Yeah.
it less true.
or less true.
And so you should say it. And like when you're talking about a vaccine that still is in clinical trials until 2024 and how we should all take it. Whether
Yeah.
or not you believe that is true or not. Clinical trials until 2024 and people are pushing it like it's commonly used all the time.
You took it to a place I was so not comfortable with.
I just had to
Well-
throw it there just because it's another one of those things
You're
you have
not
to be
comfortable with
bold.
it, but it's true.
I know, but I'm just uncomfortable.
It's wild how fast that's changed too. I mean, I don't mean to go on a tangent for a second, but holy crap! It was like a month ago. Everyone was like, "Oh no, I'm not gonna get it,"
We're all canceled.
I'm not gonna get
We're all
it.
canceled right now.
and now all my friends at my at work,
yeah.
my bosses, everybody, they've gotten it.
Yeah, a month ago,
It's
2
like,
months ago, they're like, "Oh, I'm never gonna take that," and
what's
now
happening?
they're all just, "Oh yeah, I got
All
mine
right.
yesterday."
You're right. Before we
wait. How did they aren't they only like giving shots to old folks?
no, we're government employees, man.
Man,
They are a part of the chosen. Don't you know?
Wait a minute. Why is
They're
any
frontline
Don't go
workers.
too
Any
far into
government
where we work,
employee,
though.
During this COVID thing, okay, again, since we're on a tangent, can I just gripe?
Yeah.
Any government employee hasn't lost a dime during this COVID thing.
Not
They've actually
one.
made more money and worked less.
Yep.
amen.
And now they're at the front of the line for the vaccine and everything.
Yeah.
Why are they in charge?
Well, I
because
think
we voted them.
you
We
can
voted for them.
also get the vaccine now, like at least in California.
No,
No, there's lots of people trying to get it. Your
So
mom's
it's just
boss
through
is
the
trying to
old
get it.
people?
They can't get it because
so
it's
you can sign up for it, and there
Because
is a
Kate's
waiting
grandma's
list.
getting it, but
basically.
she's older. I forget.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
she's
a certain age
prioritized,
of people or
obviously.
people that fall under special
Well,
classifications.
yeah. So we're considered an essential worker. That kind of
the hero thing,
yeah. We're
I
thrown
drive,
into
I
that
drive
group.
around in a truck and look for debris in the road with
Okay, don't go too far into what we're going into. I don't want to edit all of it out, please. Thank you.
I just want to say that you two, if you're the hero, wow.
I know. Has an America fallen?
Hey, watch yourself. I'm an American hero.
America the beautiful.
I did some things the other day that I'm not going to talk about because you don't need to know.
The beautifully bearded.
Some of us are.
yeah.
Some of
So
us are.
Some
can
of
I
you
just
are, yes.
can I just say though, get back to the subject for a second. I think the majority of people, I'm not talking just men, I think the majority of people need to grow up. and they need to speak truth lovingly, not be slapping people for fun, but speak truth lovingly.
That was a
and
dig,
stand
man.
up and you know what I mean? Put on your shoes, put on your pants, and go to work.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
This is what we
your
talked about
job.
last week. You go do your job.
Do your
Quit
job.
whining
Yeah,
and
Don't be
don't be disgusting.
yeah. And
Be an
'cause then
adult. Have
there's too many people
be proper.
that instead of actually being honest and speaking truth, they just disengage. And then they want to go live at some Christian community in the mountains somewhere because that's where they're comfortable. And it's because you need to engage with truth with people all around you. That's your job. Your job
Yeah.
isn't to retreat to the mountains and live in a little Christian getaway and so you can. I mean, I had somebody tell me a while back that they wanted to move to this particular part of Idaho because there they didn't have to be ashamed to be a Christian. I'm like, what do you mean? They said, oh yeah, I went to a rodeo and they actually opened it with prayer. I'm like,
They do that at the rodeos out in California
do
too.
that at
I'm just gonna
every
throw that
rodeo,
out there
dude.
for everybody because
And-
we still have rodeos out here. There are still
But-
some rednecks out
But
here.
the goal was they didn't want to be in a place at all that where someone challenged their faith or their testimony. It's like,
Yeah.
but shouldn't you be out there sharing your shouldn't you be that salt and light? That's the story. And so, for Pete's sake, get off the bench, get in the game.
Grow a backbone.
I think people just need to stop being afraid of death
Stand up. Stuck with your chest.
in everything.
What was it about your chest?
Stand up. Talk with your chest.
But like,
Do you know who they hang out with? Where in the world?
I have no idea. I don't know.
I don't know where
are
I
you
got that.
afraid to die?
Am I afraid to die? I mean, I'm not. I don't want it to
I
be
don't want to
today.
die.
Question. Are you
No,
afraid
not
to
really.
die?
Not really.
I'm not looking forward to it.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna put a bullet in my,
Well, I'm not
a
asking
gun with one. I'm not gonna play Russian roulette. You know.
I think that God has good things
But
for
why
me
are
when He
people
decides
afraid
to
to
take me
die?
home.
Why are people afraid to die?
Well, part of it's natural, but secondly, there's people that have
They know
not
they're-
settled what's going on in their life, or they haven't settled it with God. There's a lot of people that have beliefs that when they die, it's not going to go well. Period.
Yeah.
Well, I think
they need to
For
figure
a
that
lot
out.
of reasons, I think, and that's where the problem is. Where you talk about, don't be disgusting, grow up, don't do this,
Well,
don't
I
do
mean-
that. That's why people are afraid to die, is because of all the things they're doing all the time to avoid everything that they should be doing. That was my phone. I apologize. It happens.
Don't. If people weren't afraid to die, life would be way easier. This past year wouldn't have happened.
For that to
The
happen,
backbone would not
for
have
that
gone
to have
away.
happened, people would have to live in a way where they would be living that would give them access to not have fear to death, right?
And I think you need to clarify that statement too. If good people weren't afraid to die,
Yeah, because there's always those people that they're not actively participating in good activities, so they're afraid to die because they know. Everyone says every man under the sun will know. Help me
What?
out here, man.
I don't know what you
I
said.
don't know.
Everyone
Whatever.
says this. I don't know.
I've never heard
No,
it either.
right? That's a lie, right? You said everyone. Okay,
Huh?
ignore that.
You never finished the statement.
This
I have
is
no
what
idea
I'm
you're
saying.
talking
Are
about.
you drunk?
Riley had the day off today, so he's got
Edit.
a whole different energy level.
Yeah. I had the whole weekend off. I feel amazing.
Well, you don't sound like it. What's going on in that head of yours,
I think
dude?
too much
His
at
brain's
one
going
time.
faster than his
Yeah.
mouth.
Do we need a reboot? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I kind of lost it. So,
So, well, anyway,
Um,
but that's it. I think like I said, you know where the line is. You know what that is. The fact is though that you need to speak it, and you need to speak it in love, whether it's love for the person, whether it's love for truth, whether it's love to protect somebody else. You need to speak it lovingly. There's a way to do it tastefully. Sometimes it needs to be done very abrasively to stop someone and get their attention. Sometimes if you try to do it, I don't want to be no. Sometimes that has to be done to get their attention. But again, that's all you're using is what,
That'd
I
be
guess the police would
situational,
call
yeah.
it arresting force, right? Enough force to stop the moment, but you don't take it any further than that.
yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not there to abuse
It's not like
anybody.
you
You're not
went
there
a
to-
week
to
later
rub
and
it
beat
in.
him up about that again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
Oh.
anyway, want to wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up. If you live in the SoCal area and you need a church, swing by Mission Church, or if you want to watch online, look up missionchurch.us.us. So we're on Facebook, Mission Church Santa Clarita, Instagram. If you're watching the Kitchen Table, which you are obviously,
Wow.
go ahead and smash that subscribe button, that follow button, that like button, all the buttons that you need to hit. You know what they
Not-
are.
You can't.
Let's not act like we don't know what YouTube is a thing, and go ahead and hit all the buttons you need to hit.
Don't hit
We love you
the
guys.
down thumb. That's not a good button.
I said all the buttons I need to hit, not that button. Come on.
That's a bad button.
All right. Love you guys. Peace.